on-leash greetings is very similar to how we train a protection dog. So how we train a protection dog is we hold the dog back on a leash, and then there is a trigger in the distance the dog really wants to get to. Usually it's like a bite sleeve or a tug or something. And what we do is we slowly let the dog pull up to the trigger. The dog's building intensity by the minute because they're realizing the more I fight against this leash, the closer I get to this trigger. And then once they finally get to it, because there's so much intensity and they're so nervous somebody's going to pull them away from that thing, their instinct is to grab a hold of it. Now look at the same fucking thing you guys are doing with your dogs when you introduce them to other dogs. A dog really wants to get to that trigger, that dog. You slowly drag them into it. And once they finally get to it, there's all this tension on the leash. And then because there's no point of the on-leash greeting for the fucking dog, then you say, oh, okay, nice to meet you, let's go. And then you go to pull them away. And what do? They go to grab a hold of that freaking dog. If you want to train your dog to bite other dogs, do on-leash greeting. Okay, so pretty straightforward. I think that was the first time I really on the podcast created the comparison between protection dogs and leash reactivity, right? Okay, yeah. Now, I want to add a caveat that you have another type of leash reactivity. So you have the over-adrenalized, not necessarily I have a problem with this trigger, but I'm just overstimulated. This leash is causing a lot of frustration, whatever type of leash reactivity. Yeah. But then you have the more defensive leash reactivity. Or in the protection dog world, you have dogs that are kind of, acting out of, I don't know what the proper terminology would be, but acting out of just stimulation and excitement and wanting to engage in the game. And then you have protection dogs where you have to channel more of a defensive drive, right? So the dog is actually a little bit apprehensive and you're teaching them and reassuring them that there is a threat there, which causes them to get into this more deep protective defensive state of mind, right? And act a little bit more on that type. Yeah. It's trained in the same way, right? They're restrained. They can't get away. A trigger is kind of antagonizing them. But in this case, it's not a trigger they want to get to. In many cases, it's a trigger that they want to get away from, right? And because they can't get away from that trigger, because they're on a leash, right? Same concept here. They're restrained on a leash. They learn that they have to act defensively, and that defensive behavior makes the trigger go away, right? Okay. So somebody with a bite sleeve would stare them down, right? And then make a quick movement or something like that. It spooks the dog, and then they bark, and then you run away, right? Yeah. And the dog's like, oh, that worked. And then you continue patterning that in until you get a stronger, more defensive drive. Gotcha. And then you teach the dog to start biting to make that trigger go away, et cetera, right? Same concept with leash reactivity, right? Let's say the dog is scared of other dogs, right? And every time you walk by another dog, right, the dog is coming into invading his space, right? Or staring him down or doing something that's making the dog feel very uncomfortable. They try to get away with the leash. We don't allow them to get away because they're trapped on a leash, obviously, and they learn they have to start reacting. Yeah. Or in the case of on-leash greetings, the other dog comes up to your dog because we're like, oh, we need to socialize them, right? They need to say hi to each other. Comes up to them, your dog doesn't like it. They see you not advocating for them in that moment, and then they learn that they have to growl. And then they start growling, and we go, whoa, oh, okay, well, we're going to keep going. Reinforces it. Next time that growl turns into a bark. Next time that bark turns into reactivity. Next time that reactivity turns into freaking, whatever, biting, lunging, stuff like that. Then the dog starts proactively doing it to make the trigger go away. It builds in the same type of way. Yeah.